Season 2, Episode 3 of the podcast Trini Inspiration. Today we would like to welcome to our studio and to this presentation of the show, to this second series of the Trini Inspiration Podcast, a gentleman who is, I think, well known would be an understatement. He is not just well known, but he is well loved and well received by the culinary and entertainment circles in Trinidad and Tobago. He is a chef extraordinaire. There are so many other subcategories that we could go into if we really were to pull up his resume as it pertains to the culinary arts. But in addition to that, he is also an entertainer, musical entertainer, vocal entertainer, and an entertainer these days as well, more so on social media, where he highlights not just his culinary skills, but also shares his views and viewpoints on so many other matters, I should say, of human interest. He is now as well an acclaimed and, dare I even say, best-selling local author. We welcome to our Trini Inspiration studio. In fact, we welcome to Trini Inspiration and to the Errol Fabian studio none other than Chef Jason Peru.
Hey, thanks for having me, Fazeer. It's a privilege to be here.
It is a pleasure.
What an amazing intro there, you know.
It is a pleasure to have you in studio. But Jason, I would like to toss you a curveball in starting off today's show, because there are so many things that I mentioned at the start that we could choose to start from, and I even omitted from that introduction aspiring politician as well, which we have to get into as well in our conversation today. But this is actually the place where I would like to start. In your introduction to this book called The Impregnation of Flavor by Chef Jason Peru, copyright 2020 actually, it says, as a child, I loved food. Food was mesmerizing. The satisfaction that comes from trying varied flavors and textures was my greatest joy. Even as I grew into a very rotund boy at an early age of 12, my curiosity in the kitchen never waned. I always knew I wanted to be a chef, but this direction of becoming a domestic kitchen laborer haunted my mother, who didn't think the path was especially prestigious back in the late 90s. Nevertheless, I followed through with my dream, and my parents supported me when I went to Johnson & Wales Culinary University. I'm choosing to start here, Jason, because this struggle that you have mentioned and that your parents came around to and eventually embraced is a struggle that so many in our generation, and still some in this up and coming generation, still experience. It is the challenge of wanting what your heart wants, or wanting to pursue what you are or could be passionate about, wanting to pursue that dream that exists in your head, but more so that dream that exists in your heart, but having it all crushed because your parents or any other guardian or adult in your family, caretaker, etc., or even a teacher, he or she or they may have different goals, different dreams, different ambitions for you. Whether it is that they are trying to relive their dreams through you, or whether it is that they have already made up their mind that I am this and I want my child to follow in my footsteps. Many parents, sometimes knowingly and mostly unintentionally, many a parent, guardian, or teacher sometimes crushes or crush the dreams that reside within our hearts.
Yeah, very much so. I'll start by saying this. You have to recall that parents have lived their lives. Our parents have lived their lives. And our parents want us, that is their offspring, to be 10 times better than them. And as I get older, as a human being now, when I do have maybe children, I will think the same way. I want my daughters or whomever, sons or whatever the case may be, to be 10 times better than me, because something haunts us every single day, and that's life. Life is extremely challenging. It's so safe when we're youngsters and going to school and teenagers and we're under that umbrella. from our parents and know that everything is being taken care of. And all we have to do is just learn our work, go to school, which seems to be a hard thing to do, even at that age, because it's like, why am I going to school? But it's only when you become an adult you realize, the responsibility that comes with it. And as time goes by and becomes even more challenging, our parents become even more frightened for us because the country becomes a little more difficult. People change. The opportunities that were given to them become a little more challenging for us to receive at some point in time. And it all revolves around education. And our parents want us to have the best education, one that will take us throughout life and one that will be able to afford us a successful life so that when they are long gone, they know that their offspring is taken care of. Mm-hmm. In my case, I come from a family where my parents are basically into management and HR and advertising. It's a creative field, administrative field, management field, where they actually go to work in a business, in an office, and they work for an enterprise, an establishment, and it's guaranteed a salary at the end of the month, which you would then take to mind your family and take care of them. So you know there's a certain level of security. Becoming a chef and telling your parents that you want to become a chef when you're like 14, 15, 16, and you're getting that in your mind, it's not very promising for someone to hear whom are working extremely hard in their investment. And I say investment, someone that is your parents working very hard on their investment, which is you.
Yeah.
And they want the best for you. They don't want to hear that, you're working in the back of the house of some restaurant, catching your tail, working minimum wage. It's very worrisome. And I use chef working in the back of your house just as an example. But there are many other areas and careers that people are worried about for their kids. When they say, hey, I think I want to get into being a zoologist. What's that? Well, I love pets and I want to go study pets and study snakes and zebras and, marine biology and all these things. Like, what? What is this? Where is this coming from? I want to get into this and that. And they don't see it as being feasible. But Fuzz, I'll tell you something. What do they see as being feasible? Or being the prestigious lawyer and the doctor and the engineer, because that has led them to understand that once your daughter is going out with a doctor or your son is going out with a lawyer, wow, that's amazing. And that's something that I try to change as a lecturer at the Trinidad Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute. I told my students on the first day of class, that is the first day of class, they know nothing about cooking. I said, you have to take this career as being a chef as the most prestigious one that there is. I don't want to hear about anybody being a lawyer or doctor or anything like that. I say, this career is 10 times better than being a doctor or a lawyer. I say, you are given the gift to use your hands to create something via your imagination that will put smiles on people's faces. We all eat on a daily basis. Food is very important. Doctors and lawyers need food so that they could also go and fight cases and help make people better. Mm-hmm. I say, you are doing something that enriches the soul, mind, the body. Cook food, create food, and put smiles on people's faces. So when you stand up and you say that, I'm a chef, or you're going out to somebody's daughter and say, I am a chef, I say they should be proud to have you as a son-in-law or daughter-in-law, or whatever the case may be. Hold your shoulders up high, boost yourself, and say it proudly. And that's what I've been doing all my life. My parents were not very proud about it when I decided to go into it, but they supported me nevertheless. Because as parents, they give you a net to fall back on if you fail. But if you want something passionately, you go and you work toward it. And once you do it correctly, and you put all your might and your body, soul, and interest in it, you will get the rewards. And I must say that the time that I studied in the late 90s, there's an advent taking place where Food Network was booming. The hospitality sector was on the rise. Travel and lifestyle was booming, and money was being invested in our tourism sector. So it was all about being a chef, a celebrity chef, cooking in the famed restaurants, traveling the world, going on cruise ships and cooking and making a lot of money. And that sparked. And I was in that area where I had actually become a lecturer at that point in time, studied both locally and abroad, and equipped with all the faculties to educate students to achieve their dream. But now parents were now understanding that, hey, this is a sector that is starting to boom. It's the same thing like in the early 1992, 93. You needed to study accounting and IT When he was studying IT, the boy big, wow, he's studying IT at Roy Tech, you know? And that happened like 10 years later when everybody started to study tourism. The current state that we're in right now in COVID and the world, what is the major thing that is open right now around the world that is fueling us? It's the essentials and the supplies of food and market, being able to cook at home and be able to enrich our family with nutrition. So things have a way of changing. So to round off on that little statement that you made, parents, you don't know what's going to happen in the next 10, 15, 20 years. You don't know what sector is going to boom, what sector is going to fail. You don't know what your child is studying now might actually be the next great thing that may be propelling your nation into success. It might be that same thing that your child is studying that will actually be the bread-winning avenue for your family in the next 15 to 20 years and be well respected and well received by the nation.
I think that was as perfect a response as could have been expected for a question and an opening such as that. One last takeaway from that, though, Jay, one last thing that I'd like you to weigh in on is this. I think in listening to all of what you just said, I think that context is also very important. As you mentioned, the time in which these decisions are made or which the apprehension exists. So in your time, for instance, there was apprehension about how feasible being a chef would have been, but that has now changed. It does not mean that there are some who are not facing this very said challenge in some different field right now. Like, for instance, there are many who would be wanting to get into something that exists on the digital spectrum, something that is online or something that is virtual. And right now, because that is not tangible, because it's not easily visible, and because it is something that a parent or an adult cannot easily be made to understand, much less to appreciate, that battle I know is being very hard fought there. So in my own example, as old as I am, when a couple of years ago we started transitioning towards creating digital content, I still had that battle, even as a 30-something-year-old male, with my mother, where she felt that because I wasn't at work in an office doing something or working towards a product or an outcome that was tangible, because she couldn't see it, she couldn't understand it. And it took a lot of patience on my wife's part to try to explain that to her. And I say that to lead up to asking you this question to the youngsters or even some adults who may be transitioning careers at this point in time, who may still be facing this challenge. What advice would you give to them as to how best they could treat with it, deal with it, especially if they were not as fortunate as you were to be given that support? So if they're constantly being met with opposition to the idea or opposition to the pursuit of that dream because mom or dad don't understand it or they don't support it or they don't think it's feasible, what would you say to them?
It's funny you asked a question. Up to last night, somebody messaged me, a young lady on Facebook inbox, and I get these messages every single day of my life. Some are a little more poignant than some. And this was a young lady. She's probably 36 or 37. She just got married. And she's telling me that she works at TSTT. She's a manager there. But she's currently doing her MBA. And she's finishing that up right now. And immediately she says, I love you. And I love everything that you do. I should have become a chef in my life. And she let go 3 sighs. She types it out. I roll eyes. And I could see that there was some sorrow there going on, that she's studying this master's. She just got married. She's like studying, okay, well, what's next kind of vibe. And she's just a manager in TSTT amidst this COVID pandemic. And I could tell that she was a bit sad. And then she just started to send photos of everything that she made. And good stuff, good stuff that she was cooking. And I could see she has a profound love for it. And I couldn't tell, I didn't even need to ask, that she was obviously ushered into that direction of probably maybe finishing A-levels after CXC. You need to do A-levels and you need to go and do this program. And she probably just got roped up in the corporate admin world. And that's a sad thing, that people realize that when they have children, they need to steer them in that direction. And they suffer for the rest of their life. Their parents go into retirement and they end up now as the offspring doing something that they don't love or they're not passionate about, or have to get up every morning and be like, oh my gosh, I really have to go to work today.
I think one of the biggest risks of that, however, is the risk of resentment.
Yeah.
The risk of resenting your parents or resenting the world for having steered you in this direction when your heart wanted to lead you somewhere else.
And as simple as it was, I told her that night, I said, so what's stopping you? She said, I can't become a chef now. I love food. I said, I'm not asking you to become a chef. I said, it's a bit late right now for you. You're married, you're MBA, you're doing this, you're a manager, so and so. I say, it starts as simply as getting attached to it. What about a course that you could actually further that will enrich in your soul a little bit to make you happy and spark some happiness into your life? Mm-hmm. Because I could obviously see in the sighs that she was letting go, exhaling, that she was depressed. So what fuels us to do something brilliant on a day and have a smile and do it uncontrollably is basically the happiness that we do it. And once you could pump happiness into someone and inspire them, you can change their life. So as she may not be able to change her life completely at this point in time because she's already invested in corporate life. But if she does some courses and she practices or she gets someone to steer her and inspire her, she might do a little small catering on the side. Maybe on Saturday and Sunday, she might do 2-3 cakes. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing all these beautiful things that she's doing, samosas and so forth, and they look really good. And I'm like, why don't you try to, make a 3 dozen every Sunday and sell it? You might make, $250. But it takes you away from the monotony of her calculating stuff at TSCT every single day and studying stuff at master level.
Even if it's not done for sale, but even if it's done just for the pursuit of your passion, it feeds your soul, man.
You never know what it leads to. I'll tell you something. I've been doing homemade sausage. I'm a chef, and I've been doing homemade sausages for the past 2 years. Not necessarily for any reason to make money or profit, but I started by just making them and giving them away. And I gave them to a lot of people. My good friend Akash Samaru, your colleague, he's like, bring my pack for me. I didn't even charge him. I give it to me and it made him happy. And after a while, I realized that this is something I can do maybe on a Friday, Saturday when I have a little free time. So on public holidays, I'll make sausages and sell. And I am a chef and I get it sparked by something new that I don't normally do, because I am so into the entertainment and writing books and traveling and doing shows. And it was a new avenue that I'm actually doing these sausages now. I'm going to bring them out to market. So that young lady who does samosas and cakes and so forth, I might inspire her to do it, not only for family members, but maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the line, she could actually do it as something as a side project. So you have to inspire people as much as you can. It's never too late in life.
So even if you are even if you consider yourself to be in the twilight of your years, mm-hmm. and there was something that burned inside of you all of your life and you weren't able to pursue it, just take the first step. Is that what you're saying? Just take the first step now.
Exactly.
You never know where it could lead. You don't have to go in with an end result or an end picture in mind, but just take the next step.
My dad always wanted to be a radio announcer. You would relate to that, obviously. You spent your major life in that. Yeah. And he just loves to have the mic in front of him and play music and DJ. To the point where he has a little online radio station now in the back of his house. He has a studio just like this. And he has invested in equipment in the past 4.5 years. But he just started to do it as simple from home. We're just doing it, buying one little piece of equipment. And now he has screens. He has the technology and all these great things. So, and he is 60-something, close to 70. And he has fun. And it doesn't bother me. It makes him happy.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. Do what makes you happy. What brings excitement into your life.
So I could bring that conversation into an example, a living, working example, which is when you started creating your recipes, for instance, you didn't create recipes and come up with ideas with the intention of writing a book. But from a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, you'd realize from doing another project where you were required to write down your recipes and write down the methodologies in preparation for and to get the team involved, you'd realize at the end of it that, or somewhere in the midst of it, that you had so many recipes and so many stories to tell that revolved around food. And this is a classic example of you didn't start with the end goal in mind. You didn't start off with the goal of writing a book. Jason Peru did not decide, hey, you know what Jason Peru should do? Jason Peru should write a book to leave that behind as part of his legacy. Instead, Jason Peru was taking one step and the step after that, and whatever step came next and whatever opportunity came next. And they all just sort of snowballed into what presented itself to be this opportunity for this compilation. Because I think it'll be better off calling this a compilation rather than describing it as a book, because this is a compilation not just of recipes, but of stories.
Yeah.
My wife has been lost in your recipe book and reading this recipe book, Jason, as though it is a novel. Not because she's reading through all of the ingredients and your methodologies, but you see the highlighted yellow at the bottom here where you tell your stories, and you're so very honest and open and humble in the way that you tell your stories as they surround the dishes and as they surround our culture. This is a compilation, not just of food, but of a life surrounding food and stories. And this is phenomenal. I think indirectly, you realize the piece of miracle that just happened there. Indirectly, you were giving an example to try to inspire other people, and just realize that you lived that example, and it is because you lived it exactly that you were able to produce this.
It's very important that everything relating to my career, I do it wholeheartedly. I never hold back. Some would say, well, you're selling yourself and so forth. But if my heart tells me to do a certain thing, I will do it. In my career, I'm never shy. That book wrote itself. I was writing a book, and I did not know I was writing a book. It sounds cliche from any little humble author somewhere, anywhere in the world, from any corner, saying that, but it's true. And it was never, ever, ever my intention to write a book, because this is how I see it. And it's so shame I'm saying this now, but I saw authors as being people that, write books and it just sits on the shelf and people buy it. And it's like, he's an author. Oh, okay, cool, that's cool, well and fine. I am more action-oriented in my lifestyle, like what's going on television, he's a mover and a shaker. But authors are so complacent and what were the cases. And, you look at people like J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, such a kind, humble young lady who wrote it in her dorm room. And she wrote these brilliant things. And you would never think that such adventure came from this little young, now elder lady, and came out of it. And I was like saying, but a lot of people have been asking me to devise recipes for them and whatnot like that. And it seems like I've been doing all this work, and it was just compiling and compiling and compiling. And after a while, I realized that, okay, well, Jason, if it's one thing that you're not short of is recipes, you have thousands of them. But then, what are the ones that matter to you a lot, or would be appealing to people, or will change their life? When one does a product, when one creates a product, the product should never be for profit. It should be to change a person's life. So if this is a product, it should change people's lives. So going through the recipes, I picked out ones that were attached to memories or experiences in my life. So rather than just being a cookbook, I sell a piece of my life with me. So it becomes interesting. Nobody wants to read a cookbook with just, okay, this is how to make dockle orange, or this is how to make baked chicken. And it's just like black and white. But I wanted something that appealed to people so they could understand me and understand my heart, my journey, my experiences, and what it is like to be Chef Jason.
I'll give folks an example. I randomly opened the book, just whichever page it fell on at the time. So we're on pastel pie. And of course, as you would expect with any cookbook, there is your ingredient listing and your detailed methodology of how to execute this recipe and how to create this dish. But that yellow strip that I was telling you about at the base of it is exactly what Jason is talking about here, where he didn't just put together recipes that he had, but he chose the recipes that had stories, and more importantly, the recipes that had meaning. So we're talking about pastel pie, and the part of it that stands out the most is the story here at the bottom that says, my Aunt Roma was famous for making pastel pie on Christmas Day. I believe the first time I had it was at my grandmother's house when I was a teenager. Since then, it's simply one of those dishes that I love dearly and reminds me of my childhood. Now, Jason, just reading that alone makes this page come to life for someone who is not into cookbooks, for someone who is not interested in a recipe. Suddenly, I want to taste your childhood.
Yeah.
I want to taste that time. I want to have the experience where my taste buds can transport me back to this era. So maybe I could dine with Jason Peru back in the 1980s or 90s.
Yeah, that would have been like around 1995. And I could tell you on that day, I'm looking to get a little $10 and $15 because it's Christmas Day from uncles passing by, collecting that. And my auntie pulling out the pastel pie. Funny enough, Auntie Roma came home by me last year this time when we were working on the photography to make the recipe, to help me prepare it so it is authentic. So Auntie Roma, not only did I write about her, but she actually helped work on the picture for it to be taken. So it will be true to life. And it is a true story, nevertheless, that I looked forward to pastel pie, that I needed to chronicle it. So you just mentioned that to me, and I get warm, fuzzy.
That's one pun I don't mind.
warm fuzzy memories of being up on in Plum Road in Sangre Chiquito is where she resides on December 25th, and enjoying that pastel pie with her.
This is more than a cookbook. This is everything that you have described in terms of it being a book where you're telling stories of your lifetime as they surround food. And it's really, the name of the book is called The Impregnation of Flavor. And whilst it's a title that stands out, I feel it does not convey the fact to me that this is the story of food of Trinidad and Tobago. I wish you could have a little tagline that says this is the story of the taste of Trinidad and Tobago over the last 3 decades or 4 decades. I feel like either that or there's a huge surprise waiting for the person who purchases this book or opens its pages and decides to read any of the stories told at the base of it.
The thing about it, Fuzz, is that people who meet me are always surprised, because what they see on television or what they would see newspaper, online and so forth is something completely different to the human being that is Chef Jason. Mm-hmm. So this is a Chef Jason production. Me being a human and being a Trinidadian, obviously may want to, and this is where we had a lot of confusion, what should be the title of the book, being such that it comes from a Trinidadian. And, they wanted to name it Food by Jason. A taste of Jason, all these different things. And I went back to my mentor, Chef Jamie Oliver, and his first cookbook was called The Naked Chef. And it's not because it's a chef that is naked. It's a chef that took ingredients in its purest form, naked form, and used it in the most easiest ways and had it appeal to people so it would be affable. And my thing is that this book, yes, it's a huge area. I see you open up the Trini section, which is dead in the center, a Trini in the middle of everything. I pay homage to my Trini people, and I needed to put in a book. But as mentioned, my travels have been international, and I've been taking the concepts that I've been learning and practicing throughout the course of the world, bring it back, put it into a cookbook, and made it adaptable to our local ingredients. So when I think about the title, or why people say the impregnation of flavor, we are accustomed to something being flavorful. We're a flavorful and spicy nation. But then how do I then take that to the next level? It's a scientific study to me. It's a study on the whole. It's a philosophy. How to make flavor even more flavor-bounded. I impregnate it with further flavors. And that is to give birth to something new. Through impregnation, birth comes. And that is the same thing in terms of offspring, and we create things. So you mentioned words like legacy. Yes, this is my legacy. This is something that I have given birth to, and not just for me, but to Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the world. This book, not to sound like a narcissist or a big inflated ego, but it's going to stand the test of time in Trinidad and Tobago and to be the new Caribbean staple and what people will be using and be guided by and be proud of as being something that is Trini-centric but also adaptable internationally.
Well, for those who may see that as a bit of humble bragging before what could come across as a narcissistic statement. I will say, for those who know Chef Jason, and not just the chef that you see on television or the entertainer that you see on stage, but the human being that he spoke about, that is Jason Peru himself, they would know with certainty that if anything at all, narcissism is not one of the words, or a narcissist is not one of the words that you'd use to describe Jason. There is a difference in believing in yourself and believing in your brand and believing in what you produce and what you are able to accomplish or to achieve or to get done, as opposed to just believing that the world revolves around you. And that's a very, very powerful statement, Jason.
If you read the last 6 lines of my introduction on the first page, you could read it for the people. At the end of the day, there's Chef Jason, and then there's Jay, a guy who just wants to have a family, settle down, and feed his twin daughters and have fun with them. So once people read this book, they're going to understand the character and the human. This is a Chef Jason production, but it was written by Jason for Chef Jason. And the thing about it is that, yes, I am a personality at the end of the day. It's very difficult for me to maintain that. I'll tell you why. 80% I think of my life is Chef Jason, and I try to keep a 20% to be just Jay. Because I will walk anywhere and people will always see Chef Jason. They wouldn't really see Jason. Jason, that 20% or Jay, is for my family at home and people who know me. And I love that. I love to be Jay. I'm speaking to you as Jay right now, right? About Chef Jason.
As long as it's not Shetty.
But it's... That's a good one. You all Google Jay Shetty, okay? But it becomes a bit of a task to always maintain the Chef Jason, because I just went to the meat shop, and as I walk into the meat shop, I see my videos playing on the screen, making dishes, and I'm just not watching it. I'm just not taking it on. And the girl is walking behind and whatnot. She's like, okay, I know who this is or whatnot. You need any help? You need any help or whatnot like that? I'm just like, no, I'm just fine. But that's just what it is about. People will be attracted to Chef Jason because this is what they know and what they're about, what they're accustomed to.
Yeah.
But I love to be Jay. I love to be at home, and I love to be quiet, do my reading and enjoy my quiet time and so forth. So it's a bit difficult to maintain the two personalities nevertheless, but it's something that I have to grow accustomed to.
So I'll wrap up this part of the conversation by saying that, you mentioned that one of your goals in writing this book, in producing the book, and in doing all that you do is really to provide inspiration.
Yes.
You're hoping that you're able to provide inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
When I purchased my first copy of this book from you, it was simply because my wife and I collect local books, and we like to support local authors, and we try to buy as much local products as is possible, not just books, but other things as well. And having the book, perusing the book in some detail.
Perusing.
Pardon the pun. My wife in particular fell in love with your style and fell in love with your stories. And I'm not just paying lip service, because I'll give you the example. I'll give you another example of how exactly one of the things that she really loved about it. She loved the fact, for instance, not just the stories that you've told, but she also loved the fact that your recipes are easy recipes, but they're also recipes that can help a family who's looking to stretch a budget.
Yeah.
Because, for instance, when you have one recipe here that calls for these ingredients, you also have a recipe on the next page or the page thereafter that will require the leftover ingredients from whatever you would have utilized for the other dish. So this is not something, because many times over when you want to follow a recipe to get something done, you have to go buy specific things and not everyday things that you have in your household. And that's what this book is, because it's rooted in the authentic Trinbagonian and international experiences, but heavily influenced by Trinbagonian culture and our food, it makes it very, very, very real, very tangible, and very feasible for any Trinbagonian to use this book and not have to worry about breaking the bank or the budget. If anything at all, it's actually the opposite, helping people to stretch their dollars, stretch their pantry, whilst at the same time enjoying great quality food.
I take pride as a chef. One of my trainers would have been the late Chef Joe Brown.
Okay.
And Joe never wasted anything. Joe never wasted anything. I say it twice. And he would buy a fish, and he would say, fillet the fish. Then after he fillets the fish, he would say, go to a fork, scrape out all the bones between the meat. I'm talking about a large fish. And then he would use that meat to make fish cakes. Then he'll take the bones, and then he'll make a stock with it. Figure where I'm coming from. And I find there's a lot of wastage that takes place in the household. It frustrates and irritates me the amount of food that's wasted in a household, especially when there are a lot of hungry people out there. So I try to not get people, I try to make food affable, cooking affable, and say, hey, if you have the plantain, try that or whatnot. And I come up with things like, plantain and chicken wonton. So you can take the rotisserie chicken that you had the day before, run it through the machine, take a ripe plantain, which is sticky, run it through with the chicken, and you get this kind of like little paste of a plantain chicken paste. And you just season it up, some shadow benny, some garlic, and you use that as a filling for a wonton. And you now have a plantain chicken wonton. But we always have that half carcass of chicken inside the fridge, or a piece of stewed chicken, or whatever the case may be. Or some curry chicken from yesterday. Strip it up, and let's use it in a quesadilla. That is, you always have a piece of sada roti that is there. So put some cheese inside of your sada roti, strip that curry chicken inside there. You have the sweet pepper that is just looking at you on the door. Strip it, put it inside, press it on and put it on a tower and crisp it up until it gets crispy like a panini. And when you open it up, you have this nice this chicken and cheese. So there's so much that we could feed out. And as a chef, I could tell you something. There are big bucks in selling food. The price of food when you buy it at a wholesale price, wings, chicken, whatever the case is, and what you could do with it magically at home once you apply some labor into it. The markup, I could tell you, in a restaurant is sometimes 2 to 3 times. Because if you can take wings that cost, $13 a pound and then do something elaborate like buffalo wings and now sell it for $55 a portion with fries, the markup is extreme. Once you know what to do with food and how to buy it and how to prepare it. And that's what I try to educate my people inside there about it, and doing guava glazed barbecue wings, because we have guavas readily available around the corner or in our backyard. So instead of doing buffalo wings, let's do guava glazed barbecue wings. Instead of doing some sort of pie where you need to get some fancy sort of pastry, I show you how to use something different. We always have potatoes. We always have bread in the house, how to make a crust for a quiche instead of using flour. Let's use a bread and create a crust. Let's moisturize that bread, old hops bread, put it at the bottom of the pie dish. It crisps up as we cook it, and now you have a pie crust. And
So we come from a culture as well too, where wasting food, wasting anything for that matter, is not just frowned upon. We believe it is sinful. So I think that is one of the reasons as well why we would have connected so well with this book. Because as much as we may want something, sometimes we're not prepared to buy that thing, use half of it, and just let the other half go. So from that angle, this book has been very relatable to us, to say the very least. But I do have a statement and a question for you, Chef, on a personal note, right? So my wife and I, whenever we go to restaurants, many times before when we go to restaurants, we like to have dessert first, right? And my question is really, if at all, if ever, a chef ever views that as an insult. Is that ever the case, or do they see that as something that is not just unorthodox, but something that is rude?
No, it's not rude at all. To be honest with you, chefs in the back of the house who are preparing your meals are there to create the meals that are expedited from the front of the house. It doesn't really matter who gets what, because they never really understand who is eating what in what order per se, unless someone purchases something like a prefixed menu that they know that Fuzz is outside and he's having the chicken soup as his appetizer, the pasta as his entree, and the brownie as his dessert. They will find it a little funny if that is a prefixed menu. How is he ordering the dessert first? Right. It does not matter to them. because their job is to create the meal and send it out to the customer who's paying their hard-earned money. I would say something from a culinary perspective, nevertheless. Dessert tends to close an appetite,
right,
because of the sweetness there. So savoriness causes satiation. It causes the mouth to water in local parlance, right? But the sweetness tends to close it off. So this is probably not a good idea to do that.
But there are some who feel like having dessert first really opens up your appetite. Is that a reality?
No.
That's not it?
I don't believe in that, no.
No?
And a lot of chefs would say that, don't do that. You always try to create something that will cause the mouth to create appetite. There are even drinks, aperitif drinks, that will open up your appetite, which may be a bit dry. So as it dries, it causes the mouth to spring water to receive whatever is next. Sugar tends to, or richness in that, creams and sugars and chocolates do the opposite. They make you feel full. They close off the appetite.
So I've been asked that at a couple of the restaurants, how is it that we're having dessert first, right? And it goes beyond the philosophy of life is short, eat dessert first, which I'm sure you've heard, right? So it goes beyond that. But the whole wastage thing, it ties into that too, to an extent, right? Sometimes you just want dessert, and that's as shameless an admission as it is. And sometimes, especially if you're going to have ice cream, what tends to happen sometimes when we eat too much or you get filled is that the dessert is wasted sometimes. Now I have no issue boxing food that remains to go because I refuse to let it waste. Even if it's a little, I'm going to box it to go, right? And we could do something with that, have it later, tomorrow, add it to another dish or whatever. But you can't really box ice cream, G.
No, you cannot. And it's actually something that you got to be smart. You got to be smart. Pick a dessert that could be taken away. But keep in mind, in America, it doesn't matter to them. If you leave a half scoop of ice cream, they'll put it in a box, or not really a box, but like a container for you.
Yeah.
If you're drinking wine and you're unable to drink out the bottle of wine, they pour it into a bag for you. Or a cylinder, and you take it away because it's your hard-earned money that you've paid for it. I
think there's too much shame attached to that here. I think there are a lot of people that I know of.
There are a lot of people
who are ashamed to walk away with a doggy bag or a takeaway bag or to have whatever is left over packed for them to go.
That's nonsense. It shows that you have a problem with yourself. First and foremost, you have a problem with yourself.
It's a pride and a pretentious thing.
It's a pretentious thing.
Right.
It means that you view yourself in a certain way, and really and truly, other people outside there really do not give a damn how you view yourself.
Yeah.
I'm being completely honest with you, because that same restaurant that you walk into, nobody's going to care if you walk out with a plastic bag with a half-eaten piece of garlic bread and a half piece of chicken breast. They're going to see, well, cool, that's his own, because everybody does it. So nobody's going to be judged by walking out of a TGI Fridays or whatever the case may be, and you walk in. That's your meal. Mm-hmm. So it has to do with yourself. Something is wrong with you. I don't know how you've been socialized or how you view yourself or whatever the way may be. But that person, they have some issues with that. See, so I don't know about that.
I started talking about the book and the inspiration from it in that simply to get around to the point that after we fell in love with the book and we realized what is contained within the book and what the book is really all about, this copy of the book is actually going to go to one of my nieces with that very set intention, Jason, of inspiring her. She loves to cook. She started cooking. She and her mother have started their own business. She's just 16 years old, and their business has taken off. It obviously slumped a bit now with the COVID and the restrictions on food, but their business has taken off. They've been doing a lot of sweets. They've been doing pastas and breads, and they've been using this time as well during this COVID time to experiment and create new dishes. We had some banana bread from them recently, some donuts from them recently, and a pasta. She made a creamy Alfredo chicken and mushroom Alfredo pasta for us recently, which I loved because not everybody likes an overly creamy pasta.
Yes, yeah. And
when you see that sort of potential, even if it is in the form of a book, you have to find a way to fuel it. Now, I accept that in 2 years, in 2 months from now, she may change her mind. She may find another passion. She may find something else. But this passion has been ongoing for a couple of years. And if it is at all possible that I could fuel it, I want to be counted amongst those.
Listen, it doesn't matter. You're saying it's your niece, right? It does not matter if it's a stranger, niece, family member, friend, or somebody you've just met around the corner. anybody that you come in contact with, your goal, if having a conversation with them, is to leave them feeling better than when they met you, than when they just approached you. So they should feel better, right? If you can inspire your niece or anybody that comes to you who has a passion, whether it be for radio, culinary, arts, carpentry, or whatever they care, or point them in the right direction, you've done good. Because you never know what you would have done to change that person's. So there's this famous DJ. Well, he migrated now. His name was Mike Jones. Mm-hmm. He was on a radio station called Boom Champions. Mm-hmm. Good-looking boy, females running him down, whatnot like that. Body like a Greek god, as they would say, and whatnot like that, right? And I went to Synergy Television to do a cooking show. And he's there. He's there with his entourage and whatnot like that, muscles and tattoos and stuff. And big boom DJ boy, And he's like, hey, chef, so. I really want to become a chef. It's my dream. I said, what would you do in this? He said, well, you know how it is. When finish school, you line with the boys or whatnot, you get into music. I get a job, this guy. And I said, you really want to do this? You really want to do this, boy? I said, you have a job. He said, no, I could. He said, I won't waste your time. Please, just make time for me to come in next 2 days and sign me up. I was working at TTH at that point in time as a lecturer. I said, all right, cool, no problem. He comes in. I didn't really think per se that he would really follow through with it. And he actually showed up and he called continuously over and over. And do you know that guy, he did went to school and he has his restaurant in London right now, a vegan restaurant in London. Yeah. His real name is Michael Ninvalve, but he is married across there, has a thriving vegan restaurant. He's bringing out a book very shortly also. And he told me that I was the one that inspired him, who changed his life. Another person also, funny enough, is actually Sonny Bling, the comedian. And he was into cooking and so forth like that. And I saw this boy in class because I went to school with him. We were classmates. And he would make the class laugh all day long. And when we had events and functions, we want Sonny to host it. He was known as Karan. His real name is Karan. I said, Karan, my dad is in entertainment. He has a humorous calypso tent called Yangatang. I said, go down the road. He's auditioning people this Saturday at 2 o'clock. Boy, you're not in that, boy. You sure? Whatnot. He went, and my dad hired him instantaneously. Well, I'd want to tell you where Sonny Bling is now, right? And, as simple as it is, as you could point a person in the right direction, or just spend time with them, or whatever the case may be, you never know what difference you're going to be making in their life. So, niece, nephew, friend, acquaintance, if the book helps, the book helps. You don't know what would happen, but at least you would have steered her in the right direction.
Inspiration, and from every angle, from for the youngsters, the young ones who are aspiring into different fields, and inspiration for the book, from the book, and for everyone else generally. About pointing in the right direction, Chef, and I now want to ask you, were you pointed in the right direction, and what was your inspiration for being not just pointed in that direction, but also choosing to go in the political direction recently? How did Chef Jason Peru, who is chef extraordinaire, entertainer, and media personality, culinary personality, how did you decide to get into politics?
I'll be very blunt with you. Throughout the course of my life, being a chef, being a television chef, a traveling chef, there was never any template for me to follow. I created my own template, and I'm still creating it. A blueprint, if you would. So hopefully others could follow it. But what I've realized that what brought me my success is basically just being brave and bold. And going out there, from standing in front of television network stations, demanding to get interviewed for television shows, or calling on radio stations over and over to get my music played, or launch it. It was just being bold and just going after what you wanted. And I've realized that everything that I've done, whether it be a lecturer, an entertainer, musician, chef, I've made it happen for myself. And each of them was in positive impact, because it has changed my life, enriched my soul. I'm in a better position than I was, whether 2 years ago when I didn't have a book, than now 2 years later I have a book. And I realized that change could really happen once you want it bad enough. The thing about it is that people have given me the ability or that influence to inspire them on my television shows, radio, through music, on my career on the whole. And I thought that with this power and this ability to influence, what can I do next that can help me self-actualize?
Wow.
That I can change the nation on a greater whole. And when you talk about changing the nation, a lot of people change nations in different ways. They go out, they do humanitarian work, charitable work. They help the poor, or they just literally be a good citizen by obeying the laws on a daily basis, driving safely. And my thing about it was that, from a chef's perspective, I wanted to see how I could actually inspire people to acquire their dreams. And to me, being a politician, that is getting into the realm of power to not only talk on one-on-one with person to make them inspired, but also to change a system or an industry or a realm of thinking on a greater cause was even greater than inspiring people one-to-one or us having this conversation, but actually doing it on a grander stage so that it trickles down, so people see a difference in the nation, that they will just jump on board and say, hey, things changing here, you know. I wonder if this is, I could try. I wonder if I could really go forward. I see there's grants being offered. I see that they're clearing this piece of land. Maybe I should go and apply for a piece of land to see if I could farm. Or I see the government is serious about giving industrial pieces of equipment. Maybe I could get into construction. So it's to inspire people, but on a grander level. And that was my aspect of becoming a politician. When one of the political leaders asked me, what area had you, if you were to be accepted into cabinet, would you love to pursue? I said, hospitality, tourism, or culture. Because those were areas that I was very passionate about that worked for me. And if I could raise the level of hospitality in our sector, maybe I can change the way our customer service is viewed. Maybe I could change the way we view service on the whole in every sector of hospitality and tourism. Maybe we could attract people to come to our nation to embark on new aspects like medical tourism, sport tourism, agricultural tourism, stuff like that. I'm not just talking about coming here for a vacation, but areas that I've been through personally in my life to understand that we have agriculture here in Trinidad and Tobago. Our cocoa is the best. Our provisions could be done in a matter of manufacturing ways that we could contact places throughout the United States, like hers, who does potato chips, and they could get our beetroots, our sweet, but all these different things, our chocolate, our berries, our pineapples, which Table Land and Maruga, all these places, and we could make this in such a way that we could showcase what we have here in Trinidad and Tobago from a chef's perspective to understand, from a farmer's perspective, from an entertainer's perspective, from a cultural individual who dance bell dancing in Laventille. That, one of you guys who you've given inspiration, power to, that is me, who have inspired to, could actually return the favor now and help you elevate.
So it's no longer just inspiration, as you mentioned, one-on-one, but it's inspiration dished out or served out en masse now. Yeah.
En masse.
I just want to go back to one of the very first things you said when I posed this question. It made me smile immediately, and it's what caused my outburst of the wow outburst earlier. I have never heard anyone use the term self-actualize to speak about politics. The concept of self-actualizing by getting into politics seems like such a paradox. It really does. Who self-actualizes by getting into politics? I think the mold that we have now, the reputation that precedes politics in Trinidad and Tobago, might be closer to being one where politicians might be accused of attempting to not self-actualize, but to self-materialize by going in there and helping, paying their own hands and that sort of stuff. But
let's look at Nelson Mandela, politician. I think he surpassed self-actualization. You look at Malcolm X, and a lot of these leaders who would have been engrossed in politics, I think that they were able to inspire to the point now that people speak about them. But you're right. People see politics as a negative connotation towards it. And maybe there's
Sorry, was that part of your slogan? Was that part of your campaign? I am still lost on the idea. I'm still dumbfounded by the idea, because I feel like just the use of that terminology, I don't care what party you were canvassing for or what was happening, I feel like that is just a stroke of brilliance. Was that in any way at all a part of your campaign or a part of your briefing to those who were involved in your campaign or anything of the sort?
I went out there head-on, one-on-one, and met as many people as I can. I literally cooked meals, boxed them out thousands by the weeks. I went to each family and distributed and spoke to them one-on-one. And this was amidst the COVID period, of course. So my thing was to show them care, attention, and to help elevate their spirit, which in my view is some level of inspiration to get through a tough time. At the same time also, they came with issues, in terms of this road is not properly fixed, flooding occurs here, mosquito breeding, all these different things. And you have to listen to what they're saying. But you have no idea, and people forget this on a daily basis for us. A politician does not have the ability to fix the road. The people in the area, whomever they elect and put there or nominate or vote for, once that person understands the needs of the people in the area and what they want, and if that person is self-righteous and has their head on, they could make a difference at the end of the day. Because people believe in politicians. And once they get the belief or the ability or the influence from those people, they could then go and make a difference some way, somehow. Not the self-materializing way. But we can change anything in this country once we stand up and make it happen. People have the power at the end of the day. Any nonsense that takes place in this country can be changed. But people are so afraid to voice and stand up. And of course, I've got a bashing for it. Because it's like, who is this guy coming in to change the modus operandi of how politicians operate? But then I read about stories in Canada and Switzerland and Justin Trudeau and all these individuals who are becoming younger and fueled by positivity and trying to make a change. And why can't we not have that?
So let me ask you the contentious questions now. We've had a really inspirational conversation so far. But the first contentious question I really want to ask you is, what made you feel, Chef, that you could achieve this, your self-actualization and your helping people and inspiring people en masse and all? What made you feel that you could achieve this in the within the realm, if I'm shaping that correctly, of the, or within the or underneath the umbrella, I should say, of the United National Congress?
It goes back to the year 95, 96. And it could have been any party. But I saw a slogan by Basil Pandey in that time saying, "Give yourself a chance." That was his slogan. And he rose to power, I believe, in 95, 96, under the UNC, him being Prime Minister. Give yourself a chance. Basically saying, give yourself a chance for us to make a change. And I was just 10 years old, 11 years old, didn't really understand politics at that, but for something that resonated with me, that at the end of the day, we do have the ability to make change. But he came across as being humble. Of course, he's a silver fox, he's an orator nevertheless, but he came across as being genuine. And that is something that I felt to be, that stuck with me. It wasn't nothing to do with the current administration at this point in time. And I grew up thinking that looking at individuals like Carlos John, Yet Ming, Ms. Bisessa, Mr. Peters, Sadiq Baksh, all of these people to be superheroes to me, because I saw the ability of what they were doing to change the education system. And Ms. Bisessa said that how, trying to get rid of, corporal punishment and this common entrance thing needs to change, SEA. I saw construction taking place. Carlos wanted to pave the savannah, all this goes so crazy. And Sadiq Baksh doing construction on the creek, trying to alleviate the flooding. Yes, that's their job as ministers. But at that point in time, being a youngster, 11, 12 years old, I saw movement taking place. And it what was ingrained in me. And I said, one day, and it may sound cliche, and I don't care who says this about me, but that was my inspiration. I was a youngster. That was my inspiration. They inspired me to become something that could make the country better.
The people that provided that initial inspiration to you, all of those names that you've mentioned there, I think only one of those names remained in the UNC of the present day.
Yes.
So my next question then is, the inspiration that you grew fond of, or the people that would have inspired you, and the incarnation of the party that inspired you, was that what you met when you interfaced with this incarnation of the party? Because and I asked that question only because, Chef, that is one, if we're being very honest and open, that is one of the criticisms leveled against this incarnation of the UNC. It's been said in many different ways, but that it lacks inspiration, and over the years the party has become more of a one-man sort of show, a one-woman sort of show, rather than a party made up of brilliant minds and great orators like you just mentioned. So, in other words, what I'm asking is, did the reputation of the past and your interaction with them in the present, did it match up? Was it in sync, or did you find that there was something lacking? Or even not lacking, but more so?
Before I answer that question, I would say something. Public opinion is something that dwindles from time to time based upon how a party is marketed in the perception of the audience. There are times when they would say Party A is doing complete nonsense. Party B know what's going on. And then 2 years will come and the climate of our country will change completely. And all of a sudden, Party A, which was the less than nothing, becomes okay. They seem to be getting their stuff together. They're a choice at this point in time because Party B not performing. So it changes in times. Now I'll tell you something. I've experienced that as a newcomer into the politics. And I have to say that at the point in time in which the card in which I wanted to go up for, I believed holistically that it was the correct choice. I make no regrets about that. And yes, when I enter it and I saw the frameworks and so forth like that, things were buzzing. But just like any institution, I don't want to use the word bacchanal, there's certain fracas taking place. There are certain things or machines that are working that you're not privy to on the outside. And then you start to realize that this is not something, politics is a business. It's not necessarily something for the common good, but it's a business to run the country, to fuel business for other things that got you that business of being in business.
Did that break your heart in any way?
It did break my heart to the point now that I would tell you something. I'm despondent to know that an institution in which I looked at isn't what it added up to be. It's sad to say. And I am not saying that, oh my God, well, obviously Jason is saying this about Party A. It means that Party B is so and so.
Or it could be leveled against you that when the fox can't get the grapes, he says that it's sour.
Right? It could be said that also. But, to be honest with you, had I gotten the grapes, and I sit back and I look now, being a successful fox with the grapes, would I have been happy based upon the current state that the country is in right now? And I have to tell you that I'm glad I didn't get the grapes. I'm being totally honest. I'm glad I did not get the grapes. Because I believe that God, or whomever is ruling us right now, had a different plan for me. And I've learned something, Fuzz, that what you're accustomed to or what you grew up with from since 10, 11 years old may not be the righteous thing for you as your life changes. And my life changes every single second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year. And I'm starting to look at other avenues of ways that I can make a difference. It has nothing to do with race, skin color, or anything of that nature. How to make a difference. So nobody could condemn me and say, well, Jason, you was with this or you did that or whatnot, and you're changing, you're playing a different tune. At the end of the day, wherever I could inspire and make a difference is where you will find me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. Because I do what I have to do to ensure that I make a difference. Because when I die and I leave this earth, I want my book to make sure that my legacy is there. And I want people to say that, oh, Chef Jason, his shows are still on YouTube. You could still see reruns on the television stations. Or you could still see the products that he produced in terms of food products. They're still in the supermarket. Somebody's running it right now. Or you could see that, this recreational center or this bridge, he commissioned it. Or this building that stands here right now, named after him, he was the one that actually pioneered it and went and he lobbied for it. That is the kind of difference that I am looking forward to. I drive through UWI and I see buildings that are named after people. The students go there and half of them don't even know who it is or whatnot like that. There's a building in UWI called the Imberts Building, right? And I'm asking, is this Colum Imberts Building? And somebody answered, no, that's not. It's actually one of his, grandfathers or something like that in that nature. I did not know about that. But it's an engineering building. And I learned something, and I'd be like, there was somebody named Imbert who contributed to have this building here today. Or a library named after this person. Or a bridge, a fire station, a police station. Or even a mechanism for us to get grants for us to go to school. That is an amazing accomplishment that you can do. And it brings me back to my statement. That will give me personally a level of self-actualization. That is why I got into politics.
If you had a chance in 3 years from now to get involved, do you think you'd...
Most definitely.
You would?
Yeah,
what would have to be different for you?
I'm still learning every single day. I have a lot of elders around me. When I mean elders, political elders, and I watch both sides, read the papers, hear the banter, understand the mechanics, from low level, from councillors to municipal, regional corporations, mayors, all these different areas, constitutional bodies, constitutional executives. What I will do different is that I continue learning, and I am not going to play any party favorite in any nature to say, well, this is what I know as family, this is what I grew up with, or this is what I'm getting. I think that once people understand that you are coming there to make a change or a difference in some nature, I think they would feel that energy and that power. And you know what? I will go with that same energy. And if they reject me and I do not get elected, I do not care. It does not matter. Because I would have known that I would have given something wholeheartedly and with full passion. When I'm my last campaign, how did I campaign? I campaigned with food. Because this is what I know. So I cooked for the nation. Feed the Nation 1000 was the name of the association. And I did what I did best. I fed people. I didn't promise to do this. I promised what I could have delivered. And I fed people. I gave hampers. I went to the markets and I gave out foods to the people, whatever, victuals, whatever you want to call it. It's what I could have done. So I'm going to be wholeheartedly campaigning if I get an opportunity based upon the areas in which I am most passionate about to try to change lives. And that will always be around tourism, hospitality, culture.
When you spoke just now about not playing to childhood favorites, etc., it came across as though you were alluding to the fact that it may or may not be that you're making yourself available to the same party that you made yourself available to previously. Did I read that right?
You read it correctly. I actually got away had a huge argument in the year 2012 with an uncle of mine. And it was based upon an occurrence that took place where at the security services, I forget the name of it, anyway, there was a young lady by the name of Reshmi that was elected to head of this sector, and she was not qualified to do it. It was an act of nepotism. And my uncle, who is a staunch supporter of that said party that was in power, that elected that person to go to that board to perform that duty. I told him, I said, that is wrong. She cannot be there. And he saw it as, because my family's from Sangre Grande, and that young lady who was elected to that sector was from Sangre Grande. He saw it as, a homegrown girl get through. But she was not equipped with the faculties of the education to go there, and it was based upon nepotism. And he got mad with me. And he told me, but you should know better. Your family from Grande. That is what we support and whatnot like that. And he stormed out on me. He cursed me. Got upset with me. Because the opposing party, I stood with the opposing party who said that she does not belong there. She's not equipped with the fact. At the end of the day, they saw me as being a traitor in some way, a traitor in some other way, because I did not support a doctrine that was cast out as being, it needs to be like that. So, again, we need to be independent thinkers in what we're doing. Especially as mankind gets older, mature, that is, and we become more civilized and developed. We need to think independently. Because if we continue to think the same way as the 80s, the 90s will be the same. We do the same in the 90s, 2000 forward will be the same. We need to literally start to think differently. And that is something that I've always tried to push, whether it be my book, the career that I went forward to. We need to stop thinking that, hey, you don't need to study this to become successful in life. You don't need to go down this avenue. And I have done things that I was most passionate about in my life, and I've been successful. And I'm telling you that if I go into politics again, I may not get through right away, but I will be more successful as a human being. Because that is what it is about, self-actualization at the end of the day. I'm an excellent lecturer. I've lectured at the hospitality school for 7 years. I've done food styling. I've traveled the world because of culinary arts. I've done music because these were all passions and loves of mine. I've done an authoring book. I've ventured into politics. I've learned. I'm such a happy individual, Fazeer. You have no idea. Because at the end of the day, I know I've done it my way. And to say that if I die tomorrow, God forbid, I would die happily. Because I drive the car that I always wanted. I eat the food I always wanted. I get to do what I always loved. So there are no regrets. I am here sitting down with you today because I decided to get involved in the music industry, and that's where I met you, at 103. You know what I mean? You've purchased a book from me because you've learned about me, being working at 103, that I was a chef who did a song. And now you have a copy of my book.
It's amazing how interconnected the world is. Before we wrap up though, Jay, you use the word despondent, and I use the word interconnected because earlier this morning I used that very said word, despondent. When I saw the situation that was happening outside with all of the old folks lining up for vaccines and whatever. And I use the word despondent because I am so fed up of us not getting it right in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is not directed towards any political party, but to all of them. I'm so fed up of the way that the politics plays out in Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm so fed up of the way that the tribes in Trinidad and Tobago have so been groomed, because our politics is tribal at best. And there is a very it's a big margin of people, a big number of people, I think, who are in the middle, who are thinking critically and sensibly, etc. But the way that our political system is set up, it would mean that, like for instance, in 2007, you have 100 and something plus thousand votes, but no representation in the parliament the Winston Ducaran led COP, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm despondent because, and I use these as examples this morning, I'm despondent because we can't seem to get little things right. I don't care at the end of the day which party is in power. I always maintain that I am first and foremost a patriot of this country. I'm not a nationalist, but I am a patriot. I don't believe that Trinidad and Tobago is the best in the best, but I am patriotic and faithful and loyal and excited and eager to share Trinidad and Tobago with the rest of the world. I'm proud of Trinidad and Tobago. And
Yes.
I feel like this is where your loyalty needs to be, instead of most people, unfortunately, have their loyalty pegged to a party. And they fail to realize that when, for instance, you would have signed the document when you signed up for the UNC, in which you pledge allegiance not to the country but to the party. And this is why I have never been a subscriber to the party politics. We use the word despondent. I'll give you examples. I'm despondent at the fact that in 2015, the Kamala Prasad Bisesa-led administration in their final year in government spent over $1 billion. Understand that, $1 billion on legal fees. And I agree that it was one of the tipping factors that would have caused some of the marginal voters maybe to vote against them in that particular election. But I am now also despondent at the fact that the present Attorney General, there is skepticism and there are questions being asked about some legal fees amounting to a couple $1 million. I don't know the figure offhand. I'm not sure if it's like 10 million or more. But I am despondent that instead of giving us an answer to that 10 million, the typical thing is happening, which is deflection. Oh, this is 10 million, but the UNC wouldn't talk about the 1 billion back then. I am despondent that this is our politics, where it boils down to a matter of, which party in our mind we think stole, or as we say, thief less. Right?
Less.
And I am despondent because I don't care which party steal less. I am saying that all of them should be held accountable. All of them are guilty. Kamala Prasad Bisesa and her administration need to explain that $1 billion from 2015, and they paid the consequences for it in 2015. But you can't have an attorney general now or a government now not explaining 10. I don't care that it's only 10 million compared to $1 billion. I want to know, and as a citizen, I demand that. But where the population is concerned, if you were to go to any supporter or have this conversation with any supporter of the present party, the present government, they will not talk about that 10 million. Their first line of defense is to talk about the 1 billion. And the same is also true if the situation, or when the situation was reversed.
But the thing about it is that what you're speaking about there is not even a political thing. I mean, that is just...
I only raised that, Jason.
Listen, I come home late. I come home 10:30, and I get into trouble, and I'm facing a problem. I would say, but my brother Barry, and Barry came home late, and you didn't do him nothing, right? You just punish him. Why would they want to throw me out for? They deflect upon it because I think sometimes we just find reason to just...
I think sometimes, Jason, the reality is that we deflect because we do not have the ability, the capacity, or the willingness to face the stark reality, which is that the party that we support has wronged, has done wrong, that they are in the wrong. We will do anything except admit that. And it goes so far that I have seen firsthand where people who belong to various faiths, and in my faith as well, they have such conviction of their faith. You know what's the one thing that causes them to trump their faith, or that causes them to do something that goes counter to their faith? politics. I have seen people that I know who have been iconic in their practice of their various faiths. I have seen them compromise their faith because they believe in
Really?
anti-cams or the PNM or whichever
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
personality or party. And that is the power of the party politic in Trinidad and Tobago. And the whole reason I raised all of that, Jason, is because, just to bring it full circle, is because you're talking about inspiration, you're talking about self-actualization, you're talking about basically getting the electorate to pivot, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in a climate such as that which exists in Trinidad and Tobago, is that even possible? Is it feasible to
Nah.
dream that dream?
No. Nah, it's not possible right now. We have to mature more,
And you're
much
still
more
going
as
to
a
profit
nation.
yourself up.
Yeah,
Despite
but
that,
that's how it starts. That's how it starts. People have to start. Things are not going to change overnight. It starts incremental.
so even if you're looking at certain failure, even if you're looking at a because right now you're literally looking down into the abyss of a situation where, you have to make the right decision. And in Trinidad and Tobago, the right decision is which seat, okay, which party. It's not about the issues, because if I were to ask a UNC supporter and a PNM supporter, where does your party stand when it concerns this particular ecological issue or this particular ethical issue or this particular, they can't tell you, They don't know.
They
If
don't
you were
know.
to ask the average person, well, which of these two parties would you consider to be the Liberal Party versus the Conservative Party? Because we do have that by way of their policies that they lean towards, right? Which of these parties do you consider to be the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party? Which do you consider to be, and so on and so forth? They can't tell you because they have not analyzed the situation. They continue to just vote based on.
No, but they don't know what republic, what a
ethnicity.
republic. They don't know Democrat. They don't know about the U.S. base of
A couple
how it
months
works.
ago, Jason, I had compiled a piece. I can't remember the name of it. Do you remember that, babe? Where we spoke about Sharon, after the girl who was murdered at was it IAM? IAM? Yeah, I think so. Sharon Banfield, I think, right? Yeah, a couple years ago, right?
That would have been 16.
Right.
maybe 20.
And everybody's been clamoring. The latest incarnation of that has been with this situation as it surrounds Andrea Barrett, right? And everybody's clamoring for change and for something to be done, etc. And everybody's blaming somebody else or pointing their fingers at the police, pointing their fingers at the judiciary, pointing their fingers at the government, etc. And I do agree that all of these people, so mentioned, they do have a part to play, a role to play, etc. But do you remember a couple of years ago there was a campaign geared towards fixing crime, and I said in order to fix crime you have to fix me first, M-E. And this is the problem, and this is the one message I wish that Trinidad and Tobago would wake up to, that we are responsible for this. We seem to think that it is the politicians who have neglected us, but they only have that power because we have given them that power. They only have that power in the UNC and PNM strongholds because we have made those seats UNC and PNM strongholds. And despite what they do to us, we continue to vote for them. We continue because we've made the other option out to be so villainous, so nefarious, so outright evil that it is not an option. And Jason, that is just a description of the status quo as it is. I want to wish you all the very best in this regard, and I want to let you know that if we could ever get into a situation where we're dealing with a party or a system or a group dynamic that revolves around issues, constructive thought, talk, action, etc., and not a system that surrounds the ideals of partisanship, I will gladly get involved. I am a patriot, and I have so much that I feel that I too can offer to Trinidad and Tobago. But for now, it does not include the political dynamic, simply because I this system is broken and I can't be a part of it. And I wish you well in attempting to change it, in attempting to inspire others to be able to do so. And you have my fullest support, brother. As you did when you entered entertainment, so too you do even today.
My purpose on this earth is to inspire. I was placed on this earth to inspire. So it's all I know to do. And I will
Chef, good luck. Thank you very much for taking the time to have this conversation with us. Thanks for sharing your stories with us in addition to your recipes in this book. Thanks for the inspiration on screen, on camera, on stage, in the kitchen, and thanks for offering yourself a service to Trinidad and Tobago, even though we know that there are some people who may not have understood the level of selflessness involved in you offering yourself up in that regard. And even though there may be people in future, I'm sure there would be people in future who will still not get it, who will still not understand you being true to self and you doing you, carving your own space and your own template.
Yep.
And with your goal of inspiring others being your point of self-actualization as well. I wish you nothing but the best and continued success, Chef.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. That's it for today's presentation of Trini Inspiration, Season 2, Episode 3. Having the opportunity to chat with Chef Jason Peru. And for those who have ever wondered, no, Chef didn't walk with anything for me to sample or anything of the sort. What was the excuse for that again, Chef?
Well, I bring 12 chickens.
Uncooked, huh? Uncooked. And he brought it to a building where we don't even have a stove, so I can't even do anything with that because we can't cook it in a microwave, Chef, or could we? No, we can't. So that's it for today's show. Sorry? That was never the intention. That's it. That's it for today's show. God willing, until next week when we will chat with a young lady who is a dancer, dance choreographer, the leader of the 411 Dance Theatre, former lead dancer with the Pramala Dance Academy, a young budding entrepreneur and esthetician, and so many other hats that she wears. And she will be talking to us next week, God willing, about the ways that she has had to pivot within the cultural industries and what she has had to do as a young entrepreneur to pivot just to be able to survive these very trying and testing times. But nonetheless, she has found ways to thrive, and we'll share those success stories with you, those challenges and success stories with you in next week's conversation on Trini Inspiration. So until then, on behalf of Chef Jason Peru and myself, Fazeer Rojan, thanks for viewing, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you then. Bye for now. God bless.